Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by expressing my gratitude for having invited me and addressing you in this very distinguished environment. I have been here before, 10 to 15 years ago, also on a conference on secular humanism, actually. But I think that in the meantime, a lot has changed.
Añade a lo que tenéis aquí traducido el hecho de que él estuvo en este mismo lugar hace unos 10-15 años aproximadamente y que también era para hablar de humanismo. Pero ve que hay algunas cosas que han cambiado.
15 years ago, it was a much more, in a certain sense, harmonious culture. I couldn't remember. I saw there the civilization of Arab on my left-hand side, and there you have the Roman civilization, and at the top here of the ceiling I see the philosophia. Those different cultures and philosophy were then 15 years ago in a very harmonious relationship.
Hace esos 15 años aproximadamente que él estuvo aquí y toma las imágenes que tenemos aquí como base para lo que va a decir. Pues aquí tenemos la civilización árabe, la civilización romana, las artes liberales. Todo esto convivía en aquel todo esto convivía hace 15 años de una forma relativamente armoniosa.
Yes, it seems to be the case that the last few years we have been confronted with a kind of religiosity, religion that is very fanatical, even so fanatical that it wants to exert violent means to change the world.
Lo que hemos visto en estos 10 o 15 últimos años es que los fanatismos basados en religiones sobre todo, digamos, se han radicalizado de nuevo y lo que vemos es que hay gente incluso que está dispuesta a matar en nombre de estos principios religiosos.
And I think that here there is in a certain sense also a challenge for secular humanism. If we see what we have, if we analyze what kind of manifestations we have seen the last few weeks of religious fanaticism, that's quite impressive.
El humanismo secular se encuentra en estos momentos ante un nuevo desafío y simplemente si recordamos hechos ocurridos en las últimas semanas vemos que en efecto es así.
A few weeks ago, we were informed by the attempt of a terrorist on flight 253, a certain Abdul Muttalib, that he tried to make a terrorist attack in the aeroplane.
Hace mención, esto está en la traducción, hace mención del hecho este del terrorista que él se metió en un avión e intentó hacerlo volar por los aires en el vuelo Amsterdam-Detroit.
We also know that there have been attempts made within the Christian tradition, especially the United States of America, to kill abortion physicists.
Sabemos también que dentro de la tradición cristiana ha habido cosas parecidas, por ejemplo, intentos de asesinato de médicos porque practicaban el aborto.
It seems that in the Jewish tradition there is a lot of radicalization in the sense that all kinds of political claims are being made based on certain predictions and prophecies that have been made in the Hebrew Bible.
Lo mismo encontramos en la civilización hebrea, donde hay una radicalización muy grande relativa sobre todo, por ejemplo, a ciertas profecías que se encuentran en algunos textos canónicos de la israelíes.
It seems we are confronted now, and that was different. The situation is different from 15 years ago when I was here as well, that there seems to be a kind of what you can call a paradox of secularization. On the one hand, more and more people are being secularized, and on the other hand, there is a kind of radicalization in religion. And this poses secular humanists, I think, for a challenge.
Nos encontramos ante lo que él llama la paradoja de la secularización, es decir, aumento de la secularización de las sociedades y al mismo tiempo esta radicalización de la gente que tiene ciertas creencias religiosas. A partir de aquí me parece que ahora ya va a seguir el texto.
That most of the adherents of the monotheist creeds are fanatics.
You can go on.
Okay. It's also not the case that secular ideologies did not commit violent and atrocious acts. It's a small minority of religious believers that is being radicalized at the moment, but nevertheless, I think, and this is very important, those religious believers can find some moorings in the monotheist creed. And that's something that should give us food for thought. And there, I think, secularism comes in. I fully agree with Mr. Sabatier, of whom I held in the highest esteem. Mr. Sabatier is not only a very famous philosopher here in Spain, but his books have been translated in my country in the Dutch language as well, and I held him in high esteem. And I think that especially what he said this evening on atheism and secularism is something that we should emphasize. Atheism, yeah, you want?
Como ha metido una morcilla, voy a permitirme traducirlo porque esto no está en el texto. En teatro sabéis que la morcilla es lo que se improvisa sobre el texto del autor teatral. Ha hecho una parte para decir que Fernando Savater no solamente es muy famoso y muy leído en España, sino también en su país, en Holanda, donde sus libros son traducidos. Y dice, no puedo más que estar completamente de acuerdo con las cosas que acaba de decir Fernando sobre el secularismo.
And when we compare the situation we're in now in 2001 with the situation we were in 15 years ago, I think that the shift of emphasis is that we now see as secular humanists that not atheism should be the focal point of our attention, but indeed, as Mr. Sabatier has said, secularism.
No solamente el humanismo ha de ser el centro de nuestro pensamiento, sino por las cosas que están ocurriendo en los últimos años, también debemos centrarnos mucho en el secularismo.
But then the question is, of course, why? I think that secularism is the only basis for people who want to live together from a different background peacefully.
El secularismo sería la única forma en la que gente que procede de tradiciones y pensamientos diferentes pueden convivir pacíficamente.
But the question is, of course, what exactly secularism means and what it requires of us. Secularism is the attempt, I would say, to talk about our religious differences in a language that is in itself not religious.
El secularismo sería el intento de hablar de las diferencias que tenemos en cuestiones religiosas, por ejemplo, sin hablarlo en términos religiosos.
What could be, in a certain sense, what could be our rescue in this difficult time of religious differences is that we learn to adopt a second language after our first language, which may be atheist, humanist, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, but we have to develop a kind of language that's an overarching language in which we can talk with each other. And that language itself cannot be atheist, Christian, Protestant or Muslim, but it can only be, I think, a secularist language.
Dejadme traducir esto. Entonces, dice, el secularismo tiene que venir en nuestro rescate, el rescate de nuestras sociedades, en el sentido exactamente en que debemos aprender todos a utilizar un segundo idioma que no sea ni el idioma del cristiano, ni el idioma del ateo, ni el idioma del protestante, del musulmán, etcétera, sino que sea un segundo idioma en el cual sí podamos entendernos.
Only by doing this, I think we can overcome our difficulties. This will also have certain implications for political philosophy, and that is for the way the state can relate to religion. This is again a subject that is topical again. There are basically 5 ways that the state can relate to religion. The first way is that the state can try to eliminate all religion and to combat religion. This is what you can call political atheism. This has not been a very big success, as we know, from the Soviet Union. And apart from that, it also violates elementary human rights as freedom of expression and freedom of religion. So political atheism has to be rejected, I think.
A partir de aquí está siguiendo el esquema a partir del folio 3 de la traducción.
Yes, right. The second model is that you can try to be neutral towards religion. I think that is more or less the French model of the laïcité, and I think that model has the best perspectives in a situation of a lot of religious differences. The third model is the model of a privileged religion, a state religion. This basically violates freedom of expression and freedom of religion, and is not a very good system under the present circumstances. The fourth model, you could say, is multiculturalism, and the fifth model is theocracy. I think that as a complement to what you can call moral Esperanto or moral secularism, a religiously neutral state would be the best perspective for the European context to try to solve our religious differences. Thank you for your attention.